Critical Role is back, baby. Critical Role finally returning with its long-awaited, much-anticipated, yet highly divisive fourth campaign. As this week we got the second episode of Critical Role Campaign 4, an episode where new Critical Role DM Brennan Lee Mulligan hit us with so many lore drops. Hello everyone, I'm Finn. Welcome back to Finn Films. Join me today as we are breaking down everything that happened on Critical Role Campaign 4 Episode 2, an episode that was packed to the absolute brim with fantasy lore for this brand new world of Ahriman, as well as some pretty wild plot reveals. So episode 2 of campaign 4 opens in kind of Brennan Lee Mulligan like iconic fashion with a crazy flashback scene. The episode opening with Azune, Cadigan, Thimble, and Tayor all rolling initiative, and we see a flashback of the Falconers' Rebellion, the war that happened somewhere around 12 to 15 years prior to the events of Critical Role Campaign 4, a war which ultimately kind of is the bonding point for many of the characters, with the orc Thiazi Fang, the orc who we saw die in the opening episode and then attend their funeral, the character, the NPC that is really kind of the catalyst point for bringing together all of our party members. I have to say, these scenes were absolutely epic, and I think that these types of scenes are really like Brennan Lee Mulligan at his finest. Like, as much as people know Brennan from Dropout for doing like fun kind of comedy, you know, kooky kind of D&D campaigns, I think Brennan is at his best when he's doing really dark, like classic high fantasy. So a iconic crazy war battle scene like this one in the Falconers' Rebellion, I think is just Brennan at its finest, and what an absolute awesome way to really kick off, you know, episode 2 of campaign 4, as well as to give us a little more context on the kind of lore in the world of our characters, and an intrinsic important event that is a big kind of melding point for many of our characters in the Falconers' Rebellion. A war where a bunch of the people in Dol Makur and around this kind of fantasy world all got together to rebel against many of these sundered houses, these noble, powerful houses that have come to kind of claim power after the death of the gods in the mini Great War, you know, the Shapers' War 70 years prior, but ultimately these rebels would lose the Falconers' Rebellion. We then return to the events at the end of Campaign 4 Episode 1 and the opening of this strange large silver box in the home of the Fang family. If we remember, Taisha, Bria's character, was supposed to bring this box to Thiazi, but now at his funeral it suddenly opened at the mention of Thimble's name. Bria making a iconic, you know, D&D mistake by wanting to touch the shiny as she reaches into the box to touch one of these pieces of this ceramic mask fragment. As we watch the ceramic disappear, the inside of this box fading to mist as Bria's character Taisha instantly goes unconscious. Yeah, I have to say this was a good kind of learning point here for Brennan's DMing style, and generally it's just a good idea not to touch the creepy, weird magical artifact, and I got kind of flashback scenes to Campaign 1 with Percy touching the Deathwalker's ward. Belair, Talison's character, then goes upstairs to check out the commotion, Belair being the head curator of a magical museum here in this city, the man obviously being very infatuated by this strange large box. As we then learn a little bit about Talison's character, specifically that strange mask, that Belair long ago touched a magical artifact, a mask, which ultimately attached to his face and has been on it ever since. As Belair and Murray then remove this large silver box, taking it back to the Arcanid Museum for them to look it over. We then have a bit of a kind of confrontation scene here at the end of this funeral between Thimble, Laura Bailey's character, and Valish, Ashley Johnson's character, as Thimble thinks that Valish is the one responsible for sending the Crowkeeper assassins to try to kill her, as she knows that the stone that was taken, it ultimately belonged to Valish. So it would make sense why her character would think this, as they have a bit of a discussion, a bit of a back and forth, but Valish was not the one who sent the assassins, though she still desperately wants her stone back. The group then come together to try to figure out what exactly happened with the death of Thiazi Fang, as they had put together a contingency plan to try to save Thiazi from this execution, but ultimately it went wrong. Someone then betrayed them, their thoughts either being it was Tayor's brother, Sid, or possibly a man named Casimir. Valish and Thimble then speaking in private, the two kind of burying the hatchet, Valish apologizing to her, as Thimble decides that the next day she wants to go speak to the Crowkeeper assassins in the Thieves Guild and try to figure out just what the fuck is going on. The next day we see that Tayor, Travis's character, has gone to meet with Wikander Halavar, Sam's character, and Tyranny, Whitney Moore's character, in an absolute hilarious scene. God, I love Travis and Sam's chemistry so freaking much. I said this in my last video, but Sam has done it again, creating another absolute masterpiece of a character, a just amazing piece of like comedic relief character in Wikander, Halavar, the youngest son of the Halavar noble family, a noble family that has created a kind of religious cult around them, one that Wick, Sam's character, has been completely indoctrinated in. Tayor is waiting at the Halavar estate to meet with Wick when suddenly he sees a crash happen, as one of the servants is carrying a large box which falls on him. Tayor quickly running over, Travis rolling in that 20, as Tayor throws the box aside, using his paladin powers, his lay on hands, to heal this man. Wikander seeing these events play out the entire time, as Wikander is convinced that Tayor, Travis's character, must be a follower of the light, his family's fake religious order that they have created, though Wikander very much thinks is a real deal. Tayor believing that he can manipulate Wick, though Wikander is slightly a little bit cautious around Tayor, as Tayor did fight on the other side of the Falconer's rebellion from his family. Though Wikander does believe in redemption and all of the fake tenets of his family's religion, Wikander again very much taking his family's religion extremely seriously, as he was brought up completely entrenched in its propaganda. They are then interrupted by Wikander's grandmother, the kind of matriarch of the Halavar family, this probably being my favorite NPC so far that Brennan has created. She then questions Tayor in a very prim and proper way, asking if he is one of the followers of the religions, Travis very much failing a persuasion check, as she ushers Tayor out of the room. As soon as Tayor is out of the room, we see Wick's grandmother completely do a character swap from this prim, proper kind of face of the household with this very, kind of elegant British accent to a much more kind of, street, burly, rougher British accent in this hilarious scene.
Yes. Go ahead and take him, and we'll send Sir Felonius to you. That would be
my uncle.
Wikander's uncle, our head of security.
Sir Felonius, wonderful.
And we'll have it all settled. Thank you so much. You are shuttled out. The door closes, so it's just Yanessa and Wikander. Yanessa turns to you and says, "Get rid of the elf throw rug, would you?"
What? The cat man?
Yeah, he's up to some funny business. Look,
I got no such thing.
When are you gonna open your eyes and realize that our house has got enemies?
Wick's grandmother explaining to him that while they were supposed to spare Thiazi, he had to die because the Taconis family is making moves. The Taconis family is one of the most powerful noble families here in the Sundered Houses, and they wanted Thiazi dead. They are the House of Halavar's closest family, so they had to go along with their wishes, as his grandmother is very much worried that the Taconis family could turn on him at any moment. We need to also remember that the Taconis family is the family of Octus, Alexander Ward's character, Octus being, I believe, the youngest member of the Taconis household. A powerful, influential, and very scary family. Octus very much acting against his family's best interests as he tried to help aid in the escape of Thiazi Fang. Wick's grandmother saying that she has made a mistake. She has lied to him for too long, and tonight it's finally time for him to know the truth. We then switch scenes over to the Arcanid Family Museum with Blair Tallison's character and Murray Magnuson, Marisha's character, specifically in the Loy wing of the museum. The Loy family being one of the royal noble families here, and also being the family of Abria's character, Taisha. Murray, Marisha's character, casts Identify on this large silver box, trying to learn as much as she can, when she realizes that this is just no normal, silver box. It is, in fact, a coffin. Not just any coffin, but the coffin of a celestial being named Obalid, the halfling angel of death, a celestial being, as we learn that after the gods died in the Great War 70 years ago, all of the celestials left on the prime material fame went completely feral, and became like monsters. In Brennan's words, to see a celestial is to see death itself, as they are now horrifying creatures, powerful beings that reap death upon anyone who is around them. They open the box looking into it as mist just slowly erupts out of it, Blair, Tallison's character, dropping a tool within the box as it continues to fall down forever into the mist, they never hearing the tool ultimately drop or hit any bottom. As the two characters wonder why the Thiazi Fang would want this strange coffin. Murray then having to leave as the sun is rising, as they worked all night, having to go to the wizard school, the university here in this city. The scene then shifts to Sir Julian Devinos, Matt Mercer's character, as he meets with his very angry father, the General Raymond Devinos. We learn that Julian's father was friends with Thiazi Fang, that Thiazi saved Julian's cousin in a different war that was fought before the Falconer's Rebellion. However, Julian very much still holds contempt for Thiazi, because he believes his father threw away his noble house's future for this man and his friendship. As we also learn from this scene that the Dakota's family are looking for Octus because they believe he knows something about the attempted rescue plan for Thiazi Fang. We see Azume, Luis's character, at the Brethren Hall, the home of the Revolutionary Guard. Azune meets with Cern Einfinson from House Einfinson, as we learn that this lord was basically appointed the new boss over the Revolutionary Guard, and his family wants to siphon power away from the Guard to the houses of the lords of the families. Over at the Pentevral College of Magic, we see that the Sundered Houses are privatizing certain parts of the city, as they have had certain professors at the college fired, specifically one Professor Euripides, a friend of Murray. Murray meets with this professor as we learn that the houses pressured him to resign by threatening to revoke the license of the college to cast arcane magic on the university grounds. Lord Primus Praconis enters the scene, who is looking for his son Octus, who studies at this college. The scene then changes to the Fang family household as we see Hal, Taisha, Thimble, and Octus, and also joined by Cadigan. As Cadigan, Thimble, and Octus journey to speak with the Crow Keepers, the Thief Guild, as a bard, as they are looking for information about what happened and looking for Casimir. Here they speak with a gentleman named Solomon, which very much feels like a Peaky Blinders reference to me, as combat is instantly initiated. We then change over to our final scene between Wikander and Tyranny and Wick's family. Wick explaining to Tyranny that this acidic liquid that we saw earlier is light energy distilled into Wicklick filament that is used in religious rituals, and it is what makes up the tattoos on Wick's face. Though we need to remember that Wikander as a character is completely bought into the religious propaganda of his family, and he doesn't realize that it's all fake. Wick is greeted by his father Goddard as they is led down into the basement to show him the inner working of the prismatic retort, what they use to create this filament, as they are now finally going to reveal all of the secrets to Wikander. They take him deep down into the basement where his grandmother is waiting for him in this cathedral dome-like room, as an enormous stone sarcophagus that is over 40 feet tall sits within the middle of the room. Wikander's grandmother tells him that she loves him, but she has lied to Wick most of his life, and says that it is time she tell him the truth. Wick's father Goddard taking off his blindfold as light funnels from his eyes into the sarcophagus as it opens, as he chants in Celestial, as it is revealed that this is not a sarcophagus at all, but an Iron Maiden, one that binds an angel, and they are tapping it for its power. Hence, this white magical substance is actually the Celestial, the angel's blood. As Wikander's grandmother says, "Wiki, I want you to meet your grandfather," as Critical Role Campaign 4 Episode 2 comes to an end. And yes, that was everything that happened in Critical Role Campaign 4 Episode 2, an episode where we got a lot of lore, so much lore that was dropped in this episode. I have to really respect Brennan with how he very meticulously kind of drops this lore super casually throughout the entirety of this episode, as the kind of world of Ahriman, Brennan's new fantasy world for Campaign 4, is slowly starting to kind of come together as we get all of these little bits and pieces about the Shaper's War, the Falconers' Rebellion, just all of these little moments and things that are happening in this world that is now completely scarred by the lack of the gods, as the gods were killed in the Shaper's War, 70 years before the events of Campaign 4. And while did I love that final reveal, that final moment of Campaign 4 Episode 2 with Wikander's family, the reveal that their religion is all just a sham, and where they draw their power on is actually a celestial being that they had captured, basically like drawing on it for its power, keeping it as a prisoner. For those of you not familiar with Brennan's DMing style, expect a lot of reveals like that in the future, as my boy Brennan loves a massive plot reveal in his storytelling. It already kind of feels like we're starting to get an idea of like where this story is going. We know that after the first 4 episodes, the party is going to split into like 3 separate groups in the kind of West Marches system. Now, we don't exactly know, logistically how the West Marches system is going to work in terms of like, will each group get their own episode, or are they going to switch, mid-episode? Like, will we see multiple groups at the table, mid-episode telling their own different stories? We don't know how that's going to work yet, but it seems like we kind of already have an idea of the broad story aspects, potentially at least 1 or 2, for what these groups are actually going to pursue. As I imagine the stone, the Night Song Stone, is probably going to be a core mission, a, kind of quest for one of these groups, for one of these West Marches groups. As well, it seems like there's going to be a lot of kind of political subterfuge in this campaign, as obviously the vying for power between these, these noble houses, these sundered houses of, Dolmakure and this land are, a pretty important element of this story. Each of these houses, you know, moving against one another and moving in the background amongst the shadows to try to position themselves in a better kind of, better position of power. And obviously we have a number of characters that are linked to these different noble houses, one most obvious being Octus Ticonis of the Ticonis family, a family that very much seems like it has kind of positioned itself as one of the primary antagonists, not to mention Wikander Halavar, the youngest son of the Halavar family, which obviously, again, we had the big reveal that the Halavar family are using a captured celestial to draw arcane, spiritual power, divine power from it. I'm actually really surprised how much I'm loving Campaign 4. I knew that I would like it, but I was, also kind of worried and concerned about a lot of the changes that were going on here, as Campaign 4 is just, it implemented so many changes at one time that a lot of the fan base was super worried, and obviously people are, pretty upset. A lot of the fan base not even deciding to watch Campaign 4, as you can tell from the, the viewer drop-off from Episode 1 to Episode 2 so far. We knew that Critical Role was taking a pretty big risk by implementing all of these different changes into one campaign, from leaving the world of Exandria to Matt Mercer being a player, Brennan DMing, and obviously the introduction of all of these other new players aside from the original Critical Role cast, and obviously there is the elephant in the room of the West Marches style game, which we still don't know how exactly is going to work in practice, even though it feels like we have a little bit of a taste of it so far and how Brennan has kind of implemented, the changing of the table, these players coming and going in one sitting at the table so far between campaigns 1 and 2, in a very kind of cinematic, you imagine kind of HBO Game of Thrones-esque style, POV point of storytelling, which I'm actually surprised how much I really enjoy. Again, though, while I understand why a lot of the Critical Role fan base is upset, I totally get it, I do think it's a shame that a lot more of them haven't given Campaign 4 a shot so far. Again, I think that the complaints or the worries are super valid, but I think that you can't really have an opinion about if Campaign 4 is good or not without watching the first episode. Honestly, I think without watching probably the first 4 episodes, you can't really make an informed decision on if you like if you like Campaign 4 or not. I think there's a bunch of pretty valid reasons not to like Campaign 4, whether it's just you were attached to the world of Exandria and so you're upset about, the world of Exandria leaving. Maybe you don't like Brennan's DMing style, maybe he's just not for you, which is probably true for a decent amount of people out there, even though I'm a big fan of Brennan and I really love his DMing style, and I really love getting to see Matt as a player at the table, especially playing his, a very serious character like Sir Julian Davanos. Personally, I'm really loving Campaign 4. I like all the changes. I like the new fantasy world, and I love that we're getting all of this, this brand new world with all this brand new lore and knowledge. It's fun having kind of a complete reset from the world of Exandria. As much as I love the world of Exandria, it is fun getting to learn something new and, see them play around in this new dark fantasy world that is, somewhat similar to Exandria, but also vastly different. As always though, guys, with these videos, these are just my thoughts and opinions, so let me know yours in the comment section down below. Let me know, are you enjoying Critical Role Campaign 4 so far? What do you think of the world of Ahriman that Brennan has created and all of his crazy lore dumps so far? Let me know in the comment section. If you did enjoy this video, guys, please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, as that is the easiest way to support me, and it really does go a long way in putting these videos into the algorithm. If you did like this video, then why don't you check out some of my other D&D and Critical Role content on screen now, and as always, I hope to see you in the next video. Stay safe out there. Until next time, peace, love, adu.